After losing everything, a bankrupt millionaire decided to adopt a girl who lived on the street selling origami. Society mocked him, calling him crazy for trading wealth for a homeless child. But what no one expected was that the girl hid an extraordinary mathematical gift. And when she whispered, "Daddy, I will save your company," the whole world had to swallow its laughter. Chapter 1. The Fall. William Stratton stood at the window of his modest one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, staring at the Manhattan skyline that had once been the backdrop of his empire. Just 3 months ago, he had occupied the penthouse of one of those gleaming towers, the 60th floor of Stratton Financial Group's headquarters. Now the only remnants of that life were the designer watch on his wrist and the bespoke suit hanging in his closet, relics of a bygone era. At 53, William had been the quintessential Wall Street success story, a self-made billionaire who had clawed his way up from middle-class Connecticut, armed with nothing but an economics degree from Yale and an uncanny ability to predict market trends. For 30 years, he had built SFG into one of the most respected financial institutions in America. Managing over $50 billion in assets, his name had graced the covers of Fortune and Forbes. His opinions on the economy had swayed markets. Then came Black Friday, not the shopping holiday, but what financial analysts now called the day Stratton Financial Group imploded. The collapse had been spectacularly swift. One morning, William was hosting investors at his Hampton estate. By evening, share prices had plummeted 87% amid allegations of accounting irregularities. Within a week, the SEC had frozen the company's assets. Within a month, bankruptcy proceedings had begun. "You've been standing there for 2 hours," William muttered to himself, turning away from the window. The apartment felt like a prison cell compared to his former 10,000-square-foot Manhattan penthouse. The walls were an uninspiring beige, the furniture from a discount retailer. The kitchen barely had enough counter space to prepare a decent meal, not that William had cooked a day in his life. His phone hadn't rung in weeks. Former associates avoided him like the plague. His ex-wife Caroline, who had divorced him 6 years earlier, had sent a terse text. "Saw the news. Take care of yourself." His son Brandon, a junior at Princeton, hadn't returned his calls. The silence was deafening. The true architect of his downfall, however, was neither the market nor the regulators. It was Martin Reynolds, his partner, of 25 years. The man who had been best man at his wedding, the godfather to his son. The person William had trusted most in the world. William poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon, one of the few luxuries he still allowed himself, and sank into the threadbare couch. The evidence against Martin had emerged too late to save the company, but just in time to fuel William's rage. Martin had been systematically undermining SFG for years, creating shadow accounts, falsifying reports, and finally orchestrating the leak that triggered the collapse. A financial investigator William had hired with his dwindling personal funds had discovered transfers totaling billions to offshore accounts linked to shell companies controlled by Martin. But by then, Martin had already resurfaced at Quantum Capital, a rival firm, as their new chief strategy officer. The betrayal wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. "What was it all for?" William whispered to the empty room. 30 years of 70-hour work weeks, missed birthdays, school plays, and anniversaries, relationships sacrificed on the altar of success. And now nothing to show for it, but an apartment in a building he would have never set foot in during his previous life. His savings, once substantial, were rapidly dwindling. Legal fees had devoured most of what hadn't been tied up in company stock. The investigation into Martin was costly and yielding little that could be legally actioned. In 6 months, maybe less, William would need to find a job, a humiliating prospect for someone who had once employed thousands. Rain began to patter against the windows, matching his mood. For the first time in weeks, William felt an urge to leave the apartment. Not to see anyone or do anything in particular, but simply to escape the suffocating emptiness of these 4 walls. He grabbed his coat, another remnant from his former life, a cashmere Burberry that felt like wearing a sign saying, "I used to be somebody," and headed out. The streets of Brooklyn were slick with rain. William walked aimlessly, hands thrust deep in his pockets, head bowed against the weather and to avoid recognition. though the likelihood of being recognized had diminished considerably since his fall from grace. Amazing how quickly the world forgets. He passed trendy cafes filled with young professionals tapping on laptops, couples huddled together against the chill, delivery cyclists racing through puddles. Life continuing as if William Stratton's world hadn't just collapsed, because of course for these people it hadn't. His catastrophe was just another business headline they might have scrolled past on their phones. After an hour of wandering, William found himself in a small park. The rain had subsided to a light drizzle, and a few brave souls were out walking dogs or hurrying home. He sat on a bench, not caring that the wood was damp, and watched the world move around him with detached curiosity. That's when he noticed her, a small figure beneath the park's central gazebo, working with intense concentration. As William's eyes adjusted to the distance, he realized it was a young girl, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, folding what appeared to be colorful paper. Curious, he approached the gazebo. The girl didn't look up as he climbed the steps. She was seated cross-legged on the wooden floor, a rainbow array of paper squares spread around her, with completed origami figures arranged in neat rows. Her clothes were clean but well worn, jeans with patches at the knees, a red sweatshirt. That seemed a size too large, and sneakers that had seen better days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, revealing a face of striking seriousness for one so young. "Those are impressive," William said, indicating the origami. The meek girl looked up, assessing him with startlingly intelligent brown eyes. "They're $2 each. The cranes and frogs are $1. The dragons and complex geometric shapes are $3. William raised an eyebrow. "You're selling them. That's generally how commerce works," she replied without a hint of childish inflection. "Exchange of goods for currency." Despite himself, William smiled, the first real smile in months. "And business is good?" She shrugged. "Variable, weather-dependent. Weekend foot traffic increases sales by approximately 64% compared to weekdays. Your suit indicates disposable income despite the worn cuffs, suggesting recent financial constraints." William stared at her, momentarily speechless. "That's quite an analysis. Observation is free," she replied, returning to her folding. Her small fingers moved with precision, transforming a square of blue paper into what was becoming an intricate lotus flower. "What's your name?" William asked. "Lily," she answered without looking up. "Lily Chen. Though my birth certificate says Elizabeth. Where are your parents, Lily?" Her hands paused almost imperceptibly before continuing their work. "My mother works double shifts at Memorial Hospital. She's a custodian." "And your father?" "Statistical probability suggests he exists, but I have no empirical evidence to support this hypothesis." She completed the lotus and placed it in the $3 row. William suppressed a chuckle at her clinical response. "Shouldn't you be in school?" "It's Saturday," Lily pointed out, "and even if it weren't, the public education system has proven inadequate to my needs." William's interest deepened. There was something about this child, her vocabulary, her demeanor, her apparent self-sufficiency, that seemed extraordinary. "Are you hungry, Lily?" he asked suddenly, realizing he hadn't eaten all day himself. She considered the question with the same seriousness she seemed to apply to everything. "Yes, my caloric intake today has been suboptimal. Would you like to get something to eat? My treat." The words surprised William as much as they might have surprised her. When was the last time he had made such an offer to anyone, let alone a child he'd just met in a park? Lily studied him carefully, then began methodically packing her origami into a weathered backpack. "You're not a predator," she stated matter-of-factly. "Your body language and eye contact patterns don't match the profiles. Additionally, this is a public location with multiple witnesses." William was taken aback. "That's good to know. I'm William, by the way. William Stratton, the investment banker whose company collapsed in February," Lily said, standing and slinging her backpack over one shoulder. "Your former CFO orchestrated a complex fraud scheme that the SEC is still unraveling. The Wall Street Journal has published 17 articles about it." William felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "You read the Wall Street Journal?" "I read everything," Lily replied simply. "There's a diner 2 blocks east that serves statistically improbable pancakes for their price point. Shall we?" As they walked side by side out of the park, the fallen titan of Wall Street and the orphan child selling origami, neither could have possibly imagined how their chance encounter would transform both their lives, or the extraordinary journey they were about to begin together. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Bond. The diner was exactly as Lily had described it, unpretentious yet immaculately clean, with red vinyl booths and the aroma of fresh coffee permeating the air. William hadn't been in such an establishment in decades, having grown accustomed to Michelin-starred restaurants and exclusive clubs, yet there was something oddly comforting about the place. "Come here often?" William asked as they slid into a booth by the window. "Tuesdays and Saturdays," Lily replied, studying the laminated menu with unnecessary intensity. "Miss Patricia gives me free milk if I help sort the sugar. Packets." A waitress approached, middle-aged with kind eyes and an efficient manner. "Well, hello there, Lily. Who's your friend?" "He's not my friend yet. Insufficient data. He's William Stratton, former CEO of Stratton Financial Group," Lily responded, without looking up from the menu. "I'm considering the blueberry pancakes. Today instead of chocolate chip. Would that be an advisable deviation from routine, Miss Patricia?" Patricia laughed, shooting William a curious look. "Blueberries are full of antioxidants, sweetheart. Very advisable." She turned to William. "And for you, sir." William ordered coffee and the same pancakes as Lily, feeling strangely self-conscious. Once Patricia left, he leaned forward. "Do you always speak like a miniature professor? Do you always ask questions to which you already know the answers?" Lily countered, arranging the silverware at perfect right angles to the edge of the table. William conceded with a half-smile. "Fair enough. How old are you, Lily?" 8 years, 4 months, and 16 days. She paused. "People frequently express surprise at my vocabulary and analytical abilities. My mother says I was born with an old soul. My third-grade teacher suggested cognitive assessment. The school psychologist used terms like profoundly gifted and probable savant syndrome. None of these explanations satisfy me." Their food arrived, and William watched in amusement as Lily methodically separated her pancakes into precise quadrants before beginning to eat. She consumed her food with the same focused intention she seemed to bring to everything. "You mentioned your mother works at the hospital," William ventured. "Does she know you're selling origami in the park?" Lily paused, her fork hovering over the plate. "My mother works 16-hour shifts. She believes I'm at the after-school program until 6, and with Mrs. Zhang from apartment 4B on weekends." She met his eyes directly. "Mrs. Zhang has early-stage dementia and believes I am her granddaughter. Visiting from San Francisco, I assist her with medication management and read to her in exchange for her unwitting alibi." William's amusement faded, replaced by concern. "So you're essentially unsupervised most of the time?" "I am self-supervised," Lily corrected. "I maintain a 4.0 GPA despite the curriculum being approximately 4 grade levels below my capabilities. I prepare nutritionally balanced meals when possible. I have never sustained a significant injury, started a fire, or invited strangers into our apartment." William took a sip of his coffee, wondering how this extraordinary child had ended up across the table from him. "And the origami, where did you learn that?" "YouTube tutorials. The complexity of the models correlates with algorithmic structures in mathematics. I find it soothing." She finished a section of pancake before adding, "The proceeds supplement our grocery budget." An 8-year-old supplementing the family grocery budget. William felt a pang of something unfamiliar. Was it guilt? Here he was, wallowing in self-pity over his lost billions, while this child was selling paper creations to help buy food. "Lily, would you solve something for me?" William asked suddenly, pulling a napkin toward him. He borrowed a pen from Patricia. As she passed and wrote out a complex compound interest problem, the kind that would challenge most college finance majors. Lily glanced at the napkin, then back at William. Without touching the napkin or the pen, she said, "The optimal investment allocation would be 43% in the first instrument, 27% in the second, and 30% in the third, yielding an effective annual rate of 7.34%, assuming stable market conditions. However, given the volatility implied in the third option, a more conservative approach would be prudent." William stared at her, dumbfounded. "How did you..." That would take me minutes with a calculator. Numbers have always been friendly to me, Lily said with a small shrug, as if discussing the weather. They arrange themselves logically. The relationships are clear, like seeing constellations while others see random stars. Have you ever been tested? I mean, professionally? The school administered a standardized cognitive assessment last year. They stopped when I exceeded the ceiling of the test. She took another bite of pancake. They suggested advanced placement, but my mother feared I would be socially isolated. As if I'm not already. William leaned back in the booth, studying Lily with new eyes. In his former life, he would have seen her as an asset, a prodigy, to be cultivated, perhaps sponsored through elite institutions as a tax write-off and future recruitment prospect. Now separated from that world of relentless acquisition and strategic advantage, he simply saw a remarkable child making her way in a world ill-equipped to understand her. "What do you want, Lily?" he asked suddenly. "Not right now, but from life. What would make you happy?" The question seemed to surprise her. She set down her fork and considered it with the same intensity she'd applied to the menu. "Intellectual stimulation commensurate with my abilities. Financial security for my mother so she doesn't exhaust herself working double shifts. Access to advanced mathematical coursework." She paused. "And perhaps friends who don't find me." Strange. The simplicity and profundity of her answer struck William deeply. Before his downfall, he would have dismissed such a conversation as sentimental nonsense. Now stripped of his empire and social standing, he found himself genuinely moved by this child's honest desires. "What about you?" Lily asked unexpectedly. "What would make you happy, Mr. Stratton? Besides reclaiming your company and exacting revenge on Martin Reynolds?" William nearly choked on his coffee. "I never said anything about revenge. Your physiological responses when you mentioned your former partner's name indicated extreme antipathy. Your breathing pattern altered, pupils dilated, and micro-expressions suggested suppressed rage. Vengeance is a statistically probable desire under such circumstances." William couldn't help but laugh, a genuine laugh that surprised him with its intensity. "Has anyone ever told you that you're a little terrifying, Lily Chen?" "Frequently," she replied with the ghost of a smile. "You didn't answer my question." What would make him happy? William realized he hadn't considered this question in years, perhaps decades. His entire adult life had been dedicated to building his company, accumulating wealth and maintaining his position among New York's elite. Now that those pursuits had been forcibly removed, he felt hollow. A man without purpose. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "I've never really thought about happiness as a goal. Success, yes, achievement, certainly, but happiness, that was supposed to follow automatically." "A common misconception," Lily observed. "Studies consistently show minimal correlation between wealth accumulation and subjective well-being beyond meeting basic needs." As they finished their meal, William found himself strangely reluctant to end their conversation. This precocious child had somehow provided the first meaningful human interaction he'd experienced since his downfall. "Where do you go after this?" he asked as Patricia brought the check. "The public library until closing. They have a satisfactory mathematics section and free Wi-Fi." Lily began carefully packing her remaining origami supplies into her backpack. "My mother returns at approximately 11 p.m. The thought of this 8-year-old spending hours alone at the library, then presumably making her way home alone in the evening, disturbed William deeply. Before he could consider the implications, he heard himself saying, "I could help you." "You know." Lily looked up, wariness creeping back into her expression. "Help me how?" "With advanced mathematics. Before I went into finance, I was something of a mathematical prodigy myself. It wasn't an exaggeration. William had published papers on market algorithms before turning 30. And I currently have an abundance of free time." Lily studied him with that unnervingly penetrating gaze. "What would you want in return? Economic exchanges require mutual benefit." "Maybe I just need someone to talk to who doesn't look at me like I'm a cautionary tale," William replied with unexpected candor. "Or maybe I'm tired of feeling useless." After a long moment of consideration, Lily reached into her backpack and extracted an exquisite origami phoenix, its wings extending in magnificent detail. She placed it on the table and slid it toward William. "A preliminary token of exchange," she said seriously. "I accept your proposal on a probationary basis. We can meet here on Tuesdays and Saturdays at 2 p.m. I will bring challenging mathematical problems. You will bring appropriate instructional materials." William picked up the phoenix, marveling at its intricate folds. "Deal," he said, feeling the stirring of something he hadn't experienced in months. Perhaps hope, perhaps purpose, or perhaps simply the satisfaction of being valued for something other than his fallen status. As they parted ways outside the diner, Lily insisting she knew the route to the library perfectly well, William realized he had spent 2 hours without thinking about Martin Reynolds, the collapse of SFG, or his own misfortunes. For the first time since Black Friday, he found himself looking forward to something. Walking back to his apartment, the origami phoenix, carefully protected in his inner pocket, William felt a subtle shift in his perspective. The buildings around him, the people passing by, even the grey April sky, all seemed slightly less oppressive than they had that morning. One meal with an extraordinary child had somehow changed the texture of his existence. What he didn't yet understand was just how profound that change would become, or how their unlikely alliance would eventually shake the foundations of the financial world that had so recently cast him out. Chapter 3. New Beginnings. William's Tuesday meetings with Lily quickly expanded to 3 times a week, then 5. Within a month, he found himself restructuring his entire schedule around their sessions. The transformation in his daily life was remarkable, from endless hours of brooding in his apartment to purposeful preparation of advanced mathematical materials for an 8-year-old prodigy. Their venue shifted from Patricia's diner to the public library, then to a quiet corner of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, where Lily claimed the ambient fractal patterns of nature enhanced her cognitive function. William discovered she wasn't exaggerating. Surrounded by the mathematical perfection of unfurling ferns and spiral succulents, Lily's already extraordinary abilities seemed to intensify. "The Fibonacci sequence," she explained one afternoon, gesturing toward a nautilus shell formation, "isn't just aesthetically pleasing, it's computationally efficient. Nature optimizes for both beauty and function." William had brought her university-level textbooks on advanced calculus and number theory, expecting them to last weeks. Lily devoured them in days, asking questions that challenged even his considerable knowledge. "Your understanding of market algorithms is outdated," she informed him bluntly, after reviewing one of his published papers. "Quantum computing will render these models obsolete within 5 years." Rather than feeling insulted, William found her honesty refreshing. For too long, he had been surrounded by sycophants afraid to challenge him. Lily had no such reservations. "It's he." Was during their 4th week of meetings that William finally met Mei Chen, Lily's mother. He had waited outside their apartment building, uncertain of his reception, but determined to introduce himself properly. Mei arrived at 11:23 p.m., still wearing her hospital custodian uniform, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "Mr. Stratton," she said when William introduced himself, recognition and wariness battling in her expression. "Lily has mentioned you." "Your daughter is extraordinary, Mrs. Chen," William said sincerely. "I've been helping her with advanced mathematics." "Ms.," Mei corrected softly. "And yes, she is extraordinary, also stubborn, secretive, and too independent for her own good." She studied William with the same penetrating gaze Lily possessed. "Why are you doing this? A man like you?" The question caught William off guard with its directness. "I'm not the man I was," he admitted. "And your daughter, she sees the world differently. Being around her has been healing." Their conversation continued in the modest lobby of the apartment building, Mei gradually relaxing as William explained his genuine interest in Lily's education. By the end, she had invited him to Sunday dinner. Nothing fancy, just homemade dumplings, and cautiously approved their continued meetings. The Chen apartment was a revelation to William. Tiny but immaculate, it contained just 2 small bedrooms, a galley kitchen, and a living area dominated by bookshelves overflowing with library books. Lily's bedroom walls were covered not with posters of pop stars, but with hand-drawn mathematical formulas and meticulously crafted origami mobiles. Over the following weeks, William became a fixture at the Chen apartment. He noticed the broken air conditioner and arranged for its repair. When Lily mentioned in passing that her mother's back pain was worsening from lifting heavy equipment at the hospital, he quietly researched ergonomic techniques and presented May with a custom-designed support brace. "You don't need to do these things," May told him one evening as they washed dishes together, Lily absorbed in a physics textbook in the next room. "I know," William replied simply. "I want to." The truth was more complex than he could express. These small acts of practical kindness filled a void within him that neither wealth nor professional success had ever touched. For the first time in his adult life, William was connecting with others not as assets or liabilities, but as human beings. 6 weeks into their friendship, an incident occurred that changed everything. William arrived at the Chen's apartment to find Lily with a bruised cheek and May in tears. "What happened?" he demanded, kneeling to examine Lily's face with gentle fingers. "Some boys at school took exception to being corrected about their mathematical errors," Lily explained clinically, though William could see hurt behind her stoic expression. "They suggested I return to China, despite my having been born in Brooklyn. Their geographical ignorance was almost as profound as their mathematical deficiencies." May wiped her eyes. "The school called me at work. Again. They say Lily doesn't integrate well with the other children. They're threatening to transfer her to a more suitable environment." "They mean a behavioral intervention program," Lily translated flatly, "for problem students." William felt an unfamiliar surge of protective rage. That's absurd. She's not a problem student. She's a genius being stifled by an inadequate system. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, William sat with May at their small kitchen table. "There are other options," he said quietly. "Private schools with gifted programs, special scholarships." May shook her head. "We've looked into all of that. Even with financial aid, the costs are impossible on my salary. And without a father listed on her birth certificate, many of the family-based scholarships are unavailable." William hesitated, then spoke the words that had been forming in his mind for weeks. "What if I became Lily's legal guardian? Co-guardian?" He amended quickly, seeing May's alarmed expression. "I could provide educational opportunities, ensure her safety when you're working, give her the resources her mind deserves." "Are you want to adopt my daughter?" May's voice was incredulous. "Not take her from you," William clarified hastily. "Share responsibility. Create a legal framework that gives her access to opportunities she deserves. You've seen how we connect. How her mind works in ways that mirror my own thinking. I can help her navigate a world that doesn't understand minds like hers, because I've spent my life doing exactly that." May was silent for a long moment. "You were a billionaire, Mr. Stratton. Now you live in a Brooklyn apartment not much bigger than this one. What can you really offer Lily?" The question was painful but fair. Connections that remain despite my fall. Knowledge accumulated over decades. And time. Something you have precious little of with your working hours. William leaned forward. "More importantly, I understand what it means to be different, to see patterns others miss, to feel perpetually out of step with the world. I can help her avoid the mistakes I made." The conversation extended late into the night, exploring complexities, fears, and possibilities. By morning, a tentative agreement had been reached. They would consult a family law attorney about establishing William as Lily's legal co-guardian while preserving May's parental rights. The arrangement would focus specifically on educational advocacy and financial support. The legal process proved more challenging than anticipated. William's recent financial collapse raised red flags with family court officials. His lack of blood relation to Lily and his brief acquaintance with the family triggered suspicion. The psychological evaluation required by the court forced William to confront uncomfortable truths about his motivations. "You've experienced profound loss," the court-appointed psychologist observed. "Your company, your status, your identity. Is this child filling a void for you, Mr. Stratton?" "Perhaps," William admitted after consideration, "but is that wrong? She needs what I can give. I need what she provides. Purpose, intellectual, companionship, a reason to get up in the morning. Isn't that what family is supposed to be, people who need each other in complementary ways?" Meanwhile, Lily approached the situation with her characteristic blend of analytical detachment and unexpected emotional insight. The probability of the court approving your guardianship application is approximately 62.7%, she informed William. During one of their study sessions, this could be increased to 78.3% if you secure character references from former employees rather than business associates, as the former will be perceived as more authentic and less self-interested. William smiled. You've been calculating the odds. Of course. Lily adjusted her glasses. I've also been calculating the impact on my educational trajectory. With your guidance, I could complete high school curriculum by age 12 and undergraduate. Mathematics by 15. She paused, fiddling with a paper crane. But those are just numbers. The non-quantifiable variables are more significant. Which are? You make my mother smile, Lily said simply. You don't look at me like I'm a problem to be solved or a curiosity to be managed. You understand that my mind isn't wrong, just different. She met his eyes directly. Those variables outweigh the statistical probabilities. 3 months after their first meeting in the park, William received notification that the court had approved a modified guardianship arrangement. He wasn't Lily's father in the eyes of the law, but he was legally recognized as her educational advocate with specific rights and responsibilities regarding her schooling and intellectual development. The same week, Lily was accepted to the Westridge Academy for Exceptional Learners, an elite private school in Manhattan that specialized in profoundly gifted children. The scholarship William had quietly arranged through former associates covered her tuition completely. When Lily received her acceptance package, including a specialized curriculum tailored to her unique abilities, she did something William had never witnessed before. She cried. They have real mathematicians on staff, she whispered, scanning the faculty profiles, and a quantum computing lab, and students who won't hate me for being different. William felt a lump in his throat as he watched this brilliant child finally glimpse a world that might accommodate her extraordinary mind. You'll still need to work on your social skills, he teased gently. Even geniuses need to learn to say please and thank you. Lily looked up at him with rare vulnerability. Will you help me with that too? The non-mathematical parts? Every day, William promised, realizing as he spoke that he meant it more deeply than any business contract he'd ever signed. We'll figure it out together. That evening, the three of them celebrated with a special dinner at the Chen apartment. May had taken a rare night off from work, preparing traditional Chinese dishes alongside the American-style apple pie that Lily had specifically requested. As they ate, William observed the changes in all their lives since that rainy day in the Chiot Park. Mai looked less exhausted, having reduced her hours slightly thanks to William's discreet financial assistance. Lily's face was animated as she described the research projects she hoped to pursue at her new school, and William himself felt a sense of peace that had eluded him even at the height of his former success. A toast, he proposed, raising his water glass, to new beginnings. To family, May added softly, in all its unexpected forms. Lily considered for a moment, then raised her own glass with a solemn smile. Two statistically improbable but emotionally optimal outcomes. Their glasses clinked together in the warm light of the small Brooklyn apartment, a sound that somehow contained more genuine joy than all the champagne toasts in William's former life combined. Chapter 4. The Fateful Encounter. 6 months after Lily began attending Westridge Academy, the transformation was remarkable. Her intellectual abilities, finally given appropriate challenges and resources, had flourished beyond even William's expectations. More surprising was her social development. Among peers who shared her cognitive gifts, if not her specific mathematical genius, Lily had found a tentative sense of belonging. She still approached friendship with analytical precision, but she no longer spent lunches alone. William, too, had changed. His obsession with revenge against Martin Reynolds had gradually receded, replaced by genuine engagement with Lily's education and well-being. He had even begun consulting for small financial startups, offering wisdom gleaned from both his successes and failures. The modest income supplemented his dwindling savings and provided intellectual stimulation beyond his sessions with Lily. It was a crisp October evening when the invitation arrived, an embossed card requesting William's presence at the Manhattan Institute's annual Innovation Gala. In his previous life, he would have been a featured speaker or honored guest at such an event. Now the invitation came through a former colleague who had remained quietly loyal despite William's downfall. "They're showcasing breakthrough algorithms in financial technology," explained Diane Walters over coffee. Once William's head of research at SFG, she now led her own data analytics firm. "I thought you might enjoy seeing what's happening in the field. Plus, it would be good for people to see you out in the world again." William hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that particular spotlight." Diane studied him with the directness that had made her valuable as a colleague. "Is it the spotlight you're avoiding, or the possibility of running into Martin?" The question hit its mark. Martin Reynolds had become increasingly prominent since his betrayal of William, positioning himself as a financial visionary at Quantum Capital. His name appeared regularly in industry publications, his influence growing as he leveraged the connections and knowledge acquired during his years with William. "Both," William admitted. "But you're right. I can't hide forever." When he mentioned the invitation to Lily during their weekly chess match, a game at which she had rapidly progressed from novice to formidable opponent, her response surprised him. "I'll accompany you," she declared, moving her bishop with devastating precision. "Check." William raised an eyebrow, both at her chess move and her statement. "It's an adult event, Lily. Very formal, very boring." "The mathematical innovations being presented have significant implications for quantum financial modeling," Lily countered, unfazed. "Additionally, sociological research indicates that the presence of children can serve as a social buffer in potentially confrontational situations. Checkmate in 3 moves." William examined the board, recognizing she was right about both the chess game and the social dynamics. "Your mother would need to approve." "Already discussed. She agrees that exposure to real-world applications of theoretical mathematics would be educationally valuable." Lily's expression softened slightly. "She also said you might need moral support." And so it was decided. William would attend the gala with Lily as his guest, a decision that would alter the trajectory of their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. The evening of the gala arrived with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. William dressed in his finest remaining suit, while Lily wore a deep blue dress specially purchased for the occasion, her usual practical ponytail replaced by an elegant braid. "You look very statistical," William teased as they rode the taxi to Manhattan. "Statistically improbable," Lily corrected with the ghost of a smile. "I calculated the likelihood of being invited to such an event at my age as approximately 0.0027%. The Manhattan Institute occupied a renovated historical building in Midtown, its grand ballroom transformed for the evening into a showcase of innovation. Interactive displays demonstrated cutting-edge financial technologies, while the city's elite circulated with champagne flutes and practiced smiles. William felt the weight of eyes upon him as they entered, the fallen titan returning to society, with a child at his side. Whispers followed them, some curious, others tinged with schadenfreude. Lily, sensing his discomfort, slipped her small hand into his. "Their attention spans are limited," she murmured. "In approximately 7.4 minutes, someone more scandalous will arrive." William squeezed her hand gratefully. "When did you become the adult in this relationship?" "I've always been chronologically disadvantaged, but cognitively advanced," Lily replied, with characteristic precision. "The ratio is merely becoming less pronounced." They made their way through the crowd, William introducing Lily to former colleagues and associates who had not entirely abandoned him. Many were visibly impressed by the child's articulate responses and insightful questions about their work. Dr. Eleanor Hammond, a renowned mathematician, spent 20 minutes discussing prime number theory with Lily before turning to William with raised eyebrows. "This child is extraordinary," she said quietly. "Her understanding of complex systems is beyond most doctoral candidates I've encountered." William nodded. "I know. I'm helping guide her education, but honestly, I'm often struggling to keep up." Dr. Hammond handed him her card. "Call me." "There. Are specialized programs for minds like hers." She shouldn't just be advanced through standard curricula, she needs customized pathways. The evening progressed more pleasantly than William had anticipated. He found himself genuinely engaged in conversations about financial innovation, offering perspectives tempered by his experience of both spectacular success and catastrophic failure. Lily moved between staying close to his side and examining the technical displays with intense concentration. Then, at precisely 9:17 p.m., the moment William had both dreaded and subconsciously anticipated arrived. Martin Reynolds entered the ballroom. He looked exactly as William remembered, tall, impeccably dressed, with the same confident smile that had once seemed trustworthy but now appeared predatory. Flanked by associates from Quantum Capital, Martin worked the room with practiced charm, his laugh carrying across the space like an echo from William's past life. Lily, returning from examining a quantum computing display, immediately sensed the change in William's demeanor. "That's him," she stated rather than asked, following William's gaze. "Your cortisol levels are elevating. Your breathing pattern has altered." "Yes," William confirmed tightly. "That's him." "We should leave," Lily suggested, displaying unusual emotional intelligence. "This environment is becoming detrimental to your physiological state." William was about to agree when Martin looked up and their eyes met across the crowded room. A flicker of surprise crossed Martin's face, quickly replaced by a calculated smile. To William's dismay, his former partner began making his way toward them. "William Stratton," Martin greeted with artificial warmth. "I heard rumors you'd emerged from hibernation." His eyes flicked to Lily. "And with interesting company." "Martin," William acknowledged coldly. "This is Lily Chen, my ward and a mathematical prodigy. Lily, this is Martin Reynolds." Lily studied Martin with the same analytical intensity she applied to complex equations. "Your tie is Hermes, this season's collection. Your watch is valued at approximately $42,000. You've had a recent cosmetic procedure, subtle Botox around the eyes. And you're presenting financial projections tonight that contain statistical anomalies." Martin's practiced smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "I observed your quantum financial modeling display," Lily continued calmly. "The algorithmic predictions show anomalous patterns in sector performance that contradict established market behavior correlations. Either your foundational assumptions are flawed, or the outputs have been manually adjusted to present optimal scenarios." A tense silence fell between them. William looked from Lily to Martin, noting with a mixture of shock and satisfaction the flicker of discomfort in his former partner's eyes. "What an imaginative child," Martin finally said, his tone hardening. "Perhaps she should stick to subjects appropriate for her age." "Perhaps you should stick to honest financial representations," Lily replied evenly. Martin's face darkened. "William, you might want to teach your little protégé about the dangers of making unfounded accusations in adult company." Before William could respond, Dr. Hammond joined their circle, having overheard the exchange. "Actually, I'd be fascinated to hear more about these anomalies you've identified, young lady. I've been reviewing the quantum models myself and had similar questions." What followed was one of the most remarkable scenes of William's life. Standing in the middle of Manhattan's financial elite, 10-year-old Lily Chen systematically deconstructed the mathematical flaws in Quantum Capital's much-touted predictive algorithms. Using terms that only the most sophisticated minds in the room could follow, she identified specific inconsistencies, impossible correlations, and what she delicately termed statistically improbable optimizations. A small crowd had gathered, including several influential investors with stakes in Quantum's funds. Martin's face had progressed from annoyance to alarm as Lily continued her impromptu analysis. "Enough," he finally snapped. "This is absurd. I'm not going to stand here and be lectured by a child playing with concepts she barely understands." Dr. Hammond raised an eyebrow. "On the contrary, Mr. Reynolds, she seems to understand them perfectly, and I find her observations quite compelling." Martin turned to William, fury barely contained behind his veneer of professionalism. "I see what you're doing, William, using a child to attempt to discredit me. That's low, even for a man who's lost everything." "I didn't prompt her," William replied quietly. "Lily draws her own conclusions. Perhaps that's what worries you." With a final glare, Martin excused himself and retreated across the ballroom, immediately huddling with his associates in what appeared to be an urgent conversation. "That was unexpected," William said to Lily once the crowd had dispersed. "The mathematical inconsistencies were obvious," she replied with a shrug. "It's concerning that they weren't identified by the Regulatory Oversight Committee. The probability of such oversights occurring naturally is statistically negligible." Dr. Hammond, who had remained nearby, exchanged a significant look with William. "Your ward may have just identified something beyond simple mathematical errors," she said quietly. "If quantum capital is deliberately manipulating their models to attract investment, it would be fraud on a massive scale," William finished, his mind racing with implications. The parallel to his own company's collapse was impossible to ignore. Had Martin's betrayal of SFG been more calculated than even William had realized? As they departed the gala an hour later, William's thoughts were turbulent. What had begun as a dreaded social obligation had transformed into something far more consequential. Lily, sensing his preoccupation, waited until they were in the taxi before speaking. "His physiological responses indicated deception," she stated. "Micro-expressions, pupil dilation, sweat production. He was not merely embarrassed by my observations, he was afraid of them." William looked at her with newfound appreciation. "You noticed all that?" "Human behavior follows patterns just like mathematics," Lily explained. "Less precise, but still predictable within probability ranges." She paused. "There's more to investigate here. The anomalies I observed weren't random errors. They were systematic adjustments designed to create specific impressions." You think Martin is deliberately falsifying financial models?" William asked, keeping his voice low despite the privacy of the taxi. "I think," Lily replied carefully, "that the collapse of Stratton Financial Group and the rise of quantum capital might be connected by more than just Martin Reynolds' career trajectory. The statistical probability of certain patterns is troubling." As the taxi carried them back to Brooklyn, William felt something he hadn't experienced since before his downfall. The electric surge of a significant discovery, the sense of pieces falling into place. But unlike his former pursuits, this wasn't about personal gain or competitive advantage. This was about justice, truth, and perhaps redemption. Beside him, Lily had already withdrawn a small notebook and was jotting equations with rapid precision, her young face set in lines of intense concentration. In that moment, William realized their relationship had shifted once again. They were no longer merely guardian and ward, teacher and student. They were becoming partners in an investigation that could shake the foundations of the financial world. "I need help," William said as they approached the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan skyline receding behind them. "Someone with expertise in digital forensics, someone who understands how to track financial data through complex systems." Lily looked up from her notebook. "You're thinking of someone specific," William nodded. "Rebecca Torres. She was my head of cybersecurity at SFG. She warned me about irregularities in our systems months before the collapse, but I dismissed her concerns." He sighed, remembering his arrogance. "Another mistake I need to rectify. Will she help us after you ignored her warnings?" "I don't know," William admitted, "but we need to try." As they crossed into Brooklyn, the familiar skyline of Manhattan glittered behind them, like a constellation of possibilities and dangers. Whatever path lay ahead, William knew with certainty that nothing would be the same after tonight's revelations. The question was whether they were opening the door to justice or to even greater peril than they had already faced. Chapter 5. Conspiracies and Dangers. Rebecca Torres lived in a converted industrial loft in Red Hook, the kind of deliberately understated space that suggested both technological sophistication and a distrust of conventional luxury. When William and Lily arrived at her door the following Saturday morning, they were greeted by a woman whose appearance had changed markedly since her days at SFG. Gone were the tailored suits and corporate polish. Rebecca now sported electric blue hair, multiple piercings, and the relaxed confidence of someone living entirely on her own terms. "Well," she said, leaning against her doorframe, "William Stratton in Brooklyn, with a child. This should be interesting." "Hello, Rebecca," William replied, fighting the urge to fidget under her sardonic gaze. "This is Lily Chen. We need your help." Rebecca's eyes shifted to Lily, narrowing with professional assessment. "You brought a kid to talk about whatever illegal thing you're planning. That's a new low even for Wall Street." "I'm not a typical child," Lily stated matter-of-factly. "I have an IQ of 172, specialized mathematical abilities, and I identified statistical anomalies in Quantum Capital's financial models that suggest deliberate manipulation." Rebecca blinked, then laughed, a genuine sound that softened her features. "Okay, you've got 15 minutes. She stepped back, allowing them into her space. "But only because I'm curious about this not typical kid." The loft was exactly as William had expected. Minimalist furniture surrounded by cutting-edge technology. Multiple screens displayed scrolling code, while a 3D printer hummed quietly in one corner. A large tabby cat regarded the visitors with suspicious yellow eyes from atop a server rack. "That's Turing," Rebecca explained, noticing Lily's interest in the cat. "He judges everyone's worthiness to enter his domain." Lily approached the cat slowly, extending her hand with methodical care. "Felis catus domesticus has highly developed olfactory capabilities. He's assessing my pheromonal signature to determine threat levels." To William's surprise, the notoriously antisocial Turing sniffed Lily's hand and then butted his head against it, demanding attention. "Well," Rebecca said with raised eyebrows, "Turing has voted. Now tell me why you're really here, William." Over the next hour, they laid out everything. The encounter with Martin at the gala, Lily's identification of the statistical anomalies, their suspicion that Martin's betrayal of SFG and his subsequent rise at Quantum might be connected by more than opportunism. Rebecca listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly serious. When they finished, she rose and paced the length of her loft, fingers tapping restlessly against her thigh. "I warned you," she finally said, turning to face William. 2 years before the collapse, I flagged unusual data, patterns in the transaction systems. You said I was being paranoid." "I was wrong," William admitted. "My arrogance cost thousands of people their livelihoods and savings. I'm trying to make that right." Rebecca studied him, her gaze unflinching. "Why should I help you? You ignored me, then let me go when budget cuts came. I lost my reputation along with everyone else when SFG imploded." "Because it's not about me," William replied. "If Martin Reynolds deliberately sabotaged SFG and is now running similar schemes, at Quantum, thousands more people will be hurt. You were right before. Help us prove it now." "The mathematical probability that you were specifically targeted rather than merely a victim of broader market manipulation is 87.4%, Lily added, stroking Turing with precise movements. "The algorithmic patterns suggest a long-term strategy implemented over approximately 38 months. Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. 38 months. That would place the beginning. Shortly after you identified the first anomalies, William confirmed. What if those weren't system glitches? What if they were the first signs of Martin's plan? Rebecca sank back into her chair, the implications settling over her. I need to see the data, not just your suspicions, hard evidence. We have limited access, William admitted. That's why we need you. Lily reached into her backpack and withdrew a tablet. I've recreated the mathematical models Quantum presented at the gala and identified 17 specific inconsistencies that cannot be explained by standard statistical variation. She handed the tablet to Rebecca. The core algorithms show distinct patterns of manual adjustment to optimize projected returns. Rebecca scrolled through Lily's work, her expression shifting from skepticism to surprise to professional excitement. This is impressive, but it's still just analysis of their public-facing models. We'd need internal data to prove deliberate fraud. Which is why we need someone with your particular skills, William said carefully. Rebecca looked up sharply. You want me to hack Quantum Capital? That's a federal offense, William. We want you to help us find evidence of criminal activity that's already occurring, William countered. There must be legal channels, whistleblower protections, not when you're a discredited former CEO with obvious motivation for revenge, Rebecca pointed out. And certainly not when your evidence comes from a child, no matter how brilliant. She handed the tablet back to Lily. "I'm sorry, I can't risk my freedom for this." William felt his hopes sinking. Without Rebecca's expertise, their investigation would stall before it began. Lily, however, seemed unfazed. "What if we could obtain the evidence legally?" she asked. "Quantum Capital participates in the Young Innovators program at my school. They provide datasets for students to analyze as part of their community outreach." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "As the highest performing mathematics student, I have been invited to participate in their advanced track. This would grant me access to actual transaction data, anonymized but structurally intact." "That's ingenious," Rebecca admitted, "but still limited. They wouldn't provide anything incriminating." "Not intentionally," Lily agreed, "but large data sets contain hidden patterns that often escape intentional scrubbing. With the right analytical tools, even sanitized data can reveal systematic manipulations." Rebecca's professional interest was clearly piqued. "You'd need specialized software to identify those patterns, custom algorithms designed to detect specific types of financial manipulation." "Which you could create," William suggested. "Consulting only, no active hacking. Your expertise guiding Lily's analysis of legally obtained data." Rebecca drummed her fingers on her desk, clearly weighing the proposal. "It's still risky. If Reynolds realizes what we're doing, he has billions of reasons to prevent exposure." William acknowledged, "But we have truth on our side." "Truth doesn't have a great track record against money and power," Rebecca observed dryly. She fell silent, contemplating the cat that had now settled comfortably in Lily's lap. Finally, she sighed. "I must be crazy, but I'm in conditionally. I'll design the analytical tools. I'll consult on the data interpretation. But I won't actively hack their systems, and at the first sign of serious danger, we pull the plug. The kid's safety is non-negotiable." "Agreed," William said immediately. "I'm not a passive object requiring protection," Lily objected. "I'm a full participant in this investigation." "You're also 10 years old," Rebecca pointed out. "And despite your extraordinary mind, you're still legally and physically vulnerable." Lily considered this, then nodded. "A reasonable parameter, I accept the condition." And so their unlikely alliance was formed. The fallen financial titan, the cybersecurity specialist, and the child prodigy, each bringing unique skills to an investigation that would grow more complex and dangerous than any of them anticipated. The following weeks established a new routine. Lily participated enthusiastically in Quantum's Young Innovators program, carefully collecting datasets, while maintaining the facade of a gifted student, simply eager to learn. Rebecca transformed her loft into their operational headquarters, developing sophisticated analytical tools specifically designed to detect the patterns of manipulation Lily had identified. William leveraged his remaining industry connections to gather public information about Quantum's activities, creating a timeline that increasingly suggested a systematic strategy rather than opportunistic betrayal. Their first breakthrough came 3 weeks into their investigation. Lily, analyzing transaction timestamps from multiple datasets, identified microsecond patterns that suggested automated systems were executing trades just ahead of market movements. "Front-running," William murmured, studying the patterns Rebecca had helped visualize on her main screen, but at a scale and speed that would be nearly impossible to detect without knowing exactly what to look for. "It's more than that," Rebecca said, excitement evident in her voice. "These patterns match anomalies I identified at SFG before the collapse. Not similar, identical. They're using the same algorithms, the same methodologies. The statistical probability of such precise correlation occurring naturally is effectively zero," Lily confirmed. "The evidence suggests that the systems I'm analyzing at Quantum were developed and tested within SFG's infrastructure before being deployed externally." William felt a cold certainty settle over him. Martin wasn't just betraying me personally. He was using SFG as a testing ground, perfecting his methods before implementing them at Quantum, and deliberately triggering SFG's collapse once he had what he needed, Rebecca added, creating market chaos that would cover his tracks while positioning himself as the visionary who saw it coming. Their investigation accelerated after this discovery. Rebecca developed increasingly sophisticated tools to identify and track the manipulation patterns. Lily continued gathering data through the Young Innovators program, her exceptional performance ensuring she received access to increasingly complex data sets. William began quietly documenting everything, preparing the case they would eventually need to present to regulators. It was Lily who first noticed they were being watched. The probability of consistent Wi-Fi disruption patterns occurring naturally is approximately 0.023%, she announced one afternoon as they worked in Rebecca's loft. Someone is monitoring our network activity. Rebecca immediately initiated countermeasures, confirming Lily's suspicion. She's right. There's sophisticated surveillance targeting my systems. Not government level, but definitely professional. William felt a chill. Martin? Likely, Rebecca confirmed grimly. The question is how much they know about what we're doing. They implemented new security protocols, changing meeting times and locations, using encrypted communications, creating cover stories for their collaboration. William began noticing small disturbances in his apartment. Items slightly moved. The sensation of recent presence in supposedly empty rooms. Rebecca reported unusual attempts to access her professional accounts. The most concerning development came through Lily's school. Amanda Pearson, the social worker assigned to monitor William's guardianship arrangement, suddenly began requesting additional home visits, asking probing questions about William and Lily's activities, and expressing concerns about their frequent meetings with Rebecca. She asked specifically about my participation in the Young Innovators program, Lily reported, after a particularly intense meeting with Ms. Pearson. Her questions exhibited a 78.3% correlation with the data points most relevant to our investigation. That can't be coincidence, Rebecca said, pacing her loft. They know something and they're using official channels to gather intelligence. William felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. This is becoming too dangerous. If they're willing to manipulate child services to get to us. We can't stop now, Lily insisted with uncharacteristic emotion. We're close to establishing the connection between SFG's collapse and Quantum's current operations. The affected investors deserve justice. The situation reached crisis point the following week. Lily, working late on a particularly complex dataset, discovered a hidden algorithm within Quantum systems, one designed specifically to conceal the transfer of funds through multiple shell companies. This is it, Rebecca breathed, watching the visualization take shape on her screen. The smoking gun. This algorithm could only serve one purpose, laundering proceeds from market manipulation. As they celebrated this breakthrough, Lily's tablet suddenly shut down, then restarted with its screen displaying a simple message, "Stop now." Rebecca immediately checked her security systems. "We've been breached. Someone's accessing our data remotely." "How?" William demanded. "Your systems are supposed to be secure." Rebecca's fingers flew across her keyboard, tracing the intrusion. "They're not coming through my networks, they're..." Her face paled. "They're accessing Lily's school account, the Young Innovators program portal." Lily, displaying remarkable calm, methodically disconnected her devices. "They know what we've found." The following day, Rebecca discovered listening devices in her loft, sophisticated professional-grade equipment hidden in power outlets and light fixtures. A sweep of William's apartment revealed similar surveillance. Even more disturbing, they found a tracking application installed on Lily's school-issued tablet, monitoring every keystroke and communication. "They've been watching us for weeks," Rebecca concluded, her voice tight with anger. "Everything we've discovered, they know we know." That evening, as they debated their next move, an unexpected visitor arrived at Rebecca's loft. Amanda Pearson, the social worker, appeared disheveled and distressed, a stark contrast to her usual professional demeanor. "I need to speak with you," she said, her voice trembling. "All of you, please." William positioned himself protectively near Lily as Rebecca cautiously admitted Miss Pearson to the loft. "I know what you think," Amanda began, refusing the offered seat. "That I've been spying on you, and you're right, I have been." Tears welled in her eyes. "They have my brother. They said they'd hurt him if I didn't report on your activities. I'm so sorry." "Who has your brother?" William asked, though he already suspected the answer. "I don't know exactly," Amanda replied, wiping her eyes. "Men who said they work for Quantum Capital's security division. They approached me 6 weeks ago, right after Lily began the Young Innovators program." The confirmation of their suspicions was cold comfort. Amanda's revelation confirmed not only that they were under surveillance, but that Martin Reynolds and his associates were willing to use coercion and threats to protect their operation. "What have you told them?" Rebecca demanded. "Everything I could observe," Amanda admitted. "Your meetings, Lily's activities at school, William's movements, but not the details of your investigation. I genuinely don't understand the technical aspects." "Why are you telling us this now?" William asked, suspicion evident in his tone. "Because they're escalating," Amanda replied, her voice breaking. "Yesterday they asked me to plant something in your apartment. A device. I don't know what it does, but it's not just for listening. I won't be part of anything that might harm a child." Rebecca took the device Amanda had been given, a sleek, unmarked box with complex circuitry. After a careful examination, her expression darkened. "This is designed to corrupt electronic data," she explained. "It would have destroyed everything we've gathered and potentially framed us for financial crimes in the process. They're not just monitoring anymore. They're actively moving against us." The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. Their investigation had uncovered enough evidence to threaten Martin Reynolds and Quantum Capital, and now the response had escalated from surveillance to active countermeasures. "We need to go public with what we have," William suggested. "Before they can stop us." "Our evidence is still circumstantial," Rebecca countered. "Strong patterns, suspicious correlations, but nothing that would stand up in court against Quantum's army of lawyers. And they've already compromised my access to the Young Innovators program," Lily added. "Further data collection through that channel is now impossible." Amanda, still standing nervously by the door, spoke up. "They're watching all of you. Your homes, your devices, probably following your movements. Whatever you decide to do, you can't do it from here." The gravity of their situation was undeniable. They had uncovered a financial conspiracy worth billions, and the architects of that conspiracy now viewed them as a threat to be neutralized. Their safety, particularly Lily's, could no longer be guaranteed. "We need to disappear," Rebecca finally said, voicing what they all realized. "Separate locations, minimal contact, new devices. We continue the investigation off the grid until we have irrefutable evidence." "I'll take Lily to Connecticut," William decided. "My family has an old cabin there that few people know about. We'll be safe while we continue analyzing the data we've already gathered. And I'll head to my brother's place in Philadelphia," Rebecca added. "Different location, different networks, harder to track." As they hastily packed essential equipment and data, William felt the weight of responsibility more acutely than ever. He had drawn Lily into a dangerous situation, one that now threatened not just their investigation but potentially their safety. Yet when he expressed these concerns to her, Lily's response was characteristically direct. "The statistical probability of us succeeding remains favorable," she stated, carefully backing up her findings onto encrypted drives. "The variables have changed, but the fundamental equation remains solvable." "This isn't just about numbers anymore, Lily," William said gently. "This is about real danger." Lily looked up at him, her young face solemn. "Mathematics has always been about more than numbers to me. It's about truth, finding patterns that reveal reality. What we're doing now is no different." She paused, adjusting her glasses. "Besides, you've taught me that some equations are worth solving regardless of personal cost." As dawn broke over Brooklyn, 3 separate vehicles departed in different directions. Rebecca toward Philadelphia, Amanda to a safe location arranged by William's remaining trusted contacts, and William and Lily toward the quiet forests of Connecticut. The investigation had entered a new and dangerous phase, their alliance now operating in the shadows. What none of them realized as they fled was that the most significant threat to their mission was yet to emerge, and it would come not from external enemies, but from the legal system itself. Chapter 6. Separation and Resistance. The Connecticut cabin stood in a clearing surrounded by ancient oak trees, their autumn foliage creating a natural shield of crimson and gold. Built by William's grandfather in the 1950s, the modest structure had been largely forgotten by the Stratton family after William's parents passed away. Its rustic simplicity, a far cry from William's former Manhattan penthouse, now represented their best hope for safety and continued investigation. No internet connection, William noted as they settled in, unpacking the equipment Rebecca had prepared for them. We'll need to use the satellite phone for emergency communications only. Lily explored the cabin with methodical curiosity, cataloging its features with her characteristic precision. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, inefficient heating system, but adequate insulation. The probability of being located here is approximately 12.4%, assuming standard search parameters. William smiled despite their circumstances. How do you calculate that? Property records, family connections, geographic isolation factors, and the statistical likelihood of someone with your background retreating to a location with no luxury amenities, Lily explained, testing the firmness of the sofa that would serve as her workspace. I've factored in the additional variable that Martin Reynolds knew you personally for 25 years. The reminder of their vulnerability sobered William. While he had never mentioned the cabin to Martin, he couldn't be certain what other connections might lead their pursuers to this location. They would need to work quickly. For the next week, they established a productive routine. During daylight hours, they worked on analyzing the data they had managed to extract before their hasty departure from Brooklyn. Lily developed new algorithms specifically designed to track the patterns they had identified, while William documented their findings in preparation for eventual presentation to regulatory authorities. Evenings were spent reviewing their progress and planning next steps, often over simple meals cooked on the cabin's ancient stove. Their forced isolation had an unexpected effect on their relationship. Without the distractions of the outside world, William found himself learning more about Lily as a person, beyond her extraordinary mind. He discovered her dry sense of humor, her love of classical music, her habit of organizing everything into perfect geometric arrangements. In turn, Lily observed William with increasing emotional intelligence, adapting her communication to accommodate his moods and offering comfort in her own unique way, usually through mathematical metaphors or origami creations left where he would find them. On their 9th day at the cabin, the satellite phone rang, the first contact from the outside world since their arrival. Rebecca's voice came through, tense but controlled. "We have a problem. Amanda Pearson has been replaced as Lily's caseworker. The new appointee is pushing for an emergency review of the guardianship arrangement, citing concerns about the child's welfare and exposure to potentially illegal activities." William's blood ran cold. "They're using the system against us." "It gets worse," Rebecca continued. "They've submitted evidence, manipulated communications, suggesting you're using Lily to conduct corporate espionage. The review is scheduled for next week, and there's already talk of temporary protective custody." "They want to separate us," William realized, glancing at Lily, who was listening intently, "to isolate her and stop our investigation." "Precisely," Rebecca confirmed. "I'm working on countering their digital evidence, but it's sophisticated work. They've created a compelling narrative that plays on your controversial financial history." After ending the call, William explained the situation to Lily, careful to be honest without causing unnecessary alarm. Her response was characteristically analytical. "Logical strategy on their part," she observed. "Removing me from the equation significantly reduces your credibility and eliminates the primary analyst of their mathematical patterns." She adjusted her glasses, a gesture William had come to recognize as her processing complex emotions. "We should anticipate an attempt to locate us within the next 72 hours. William marveled at her composure. "You're taking this very calmly." "Outward panic would be inefficient," Lily replied, though William detected a slight tremor in her voice. "However, my physiological responses indicate elevated stress levels. I find I am concerned about potential separation." The vulnerability in her admission touched William deeply. Despite her extraordinary intellect, Lily was still a child facing frightening uncertainty. He knelt to meet her at eye level, A gesture he had learned helped her process emotional communications. "I won't let them separate us," he promised. "We've built something important here, not just our investigation, but our family. I'll fight. For that with everything I have." Lily nodded, her expression serious. "Then we need to accelerate our analysis. The most effective defense will be irrefutable evidence of Quantum's financial manipulation." They worked through the night, pushing their analysis to new depths. Lily's algorithms began identifying not just patterns, but specific transactions that could be traced to shell companies connected to Martin Reynolds. William documented everything meticulously, creating a timeline that demonstrated the systematic nature of the fraud. By dawn, they had compiled their strongest case yet, still circumstantial in many respects, but increasingly compelling. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly. Examining timestamp patterns across multiple datasets, Lily identified a recurring anomaly: microsecond delays in certain transactions that made no sense in legitimate trading. "These delays appear random," she explained, displaying the pattern on her tablet. "But when mapped against market movements, they create a perfect predictive sequence. The statistical probability of this occurring naturally is effectively zero." William studied the pattern, recognition dawning. "It's a signature. Martin always had one in his code. He called it his mathematical fingerprint. He built it into every major algorithm at SFG. Then we have him," Lily said, her eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. "This connects the quantum systems directly to Martin Reynolds personally. Even if he claims the overall strategy was legitimate, his unique signature in the code proves his direct involvement." Their celebration was short-lived. That afternoon, as William stepped outside to gather firewood, he spotted an unfamiliar vehicle approaching on the distant access road, still minutes away, but unmistakably heading toward the cabin. "We need to leave," he told Lily urgently upon returning. "Pack only the essentials: the data drives, your tablet, basic necessities." Lily moved with practiced efficiency, having anticipated this possibility. Within minutes, they had gathered their critical equipment and slipped out the back door, taking a narrow hiking trail that led deeper into the forest rather than toward the main road. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, as they made their way through the dense autumn foliage, careful to leave minimal signs of their passage. "There's an old boathouse on the lake about 2 miles from here," William explained, helping her over a fallen tree. "My grandfather used to take me fishing there. It's not on any property maps, just a small structure most people have forgotten about." They reached the boathouse as dusk was falling, a weathered wooden structure perched on the edge of a small lake, containing little more than a few ancient fishing rods and a rickety table. It was cold and uncomfortable, but it offered temporary shelter and obscurity. Using the satellite phone, William contacted Rebecca, who confirmed their fears. The approaching vehicle contained representatives from Child Protective Services, accompanied by private security personnel who Rebecca strongly suspected were connected to Quantum Capital. "They're moving faster than I anticipated," Rebecca reported grimly. "They've obtained an emergency order for temporary removal of Lily from your custody, citing imminent risk, based on your disappearance from New York. Can you fight it?" William asked, watching Lily as she methodically organized their limited supplies in the dimming light. "I'm working on it," Rebecca assured him. "I've traced some of the manipulated evidence to specific servers connected to Quantum subsidiaries. If I can prove the allegations were deliberately falsified, but the legal process would take time they didn't have. For now, their priority had to be keeping Lily safe and continuing their work." They spent an uncomfortable night in the boathouse, using thermal blankets from their emergency supplies to ward off the autumn chill. The following morning brought the news they had been dreading. Rebecca called to inform them that the court had formally suspended William's guardianship and issued an order for Lily to be placed in temporary protective custody. "They're searching the entire area," she warned. "Multiple teams, coordinated, through local authorities who have no idea they're being used as pawns in a corporate conspiracy." William faced an impossible decision: continue evading authorities, potentially facing kidnapping charges, or surrender Lily to a system now manipulated by their enemies. Before he could voice these concerns, Lily spoke up with characteristic directness. "The optimal strategy is clear," she stated, her voice steady despite the fear William could see in her eyes. "I should return voluntarily to protective custody, while you and Rebecca continue the investigation. Resistance would only strengthen their narrative about my alleged endangerment." "Absolutely not," William objected. "Once they have you, they'll isolate you completely. No communication, no continuation of our work." "Precisely why you must retain the data and continue without me," Lily countered. "I've already programmed the analytical algorithms to run independently. You and Rebecca can follow my established protocols." "It's not about the investigation anymore, Lily," William said, kneeling to meet her gaze. "It's about keeping you safe. If they take you, I can't protect you." "Statistically speaking, I face no physical danger," Lily reasoned. "My value to them lies in separating me from you and halting our investigation. They won't risk actual harm. To a minor, the legal consequences would be catastrophic." William recognized the logic in her analysis, but his heart rebelled against it. In the month since their first meeting in the Brooklyn Park, Lily had become more than his ward or a student. She was family in every way that mattered. The thought of surrendering her to their enemies, even temporarily, was unbearable. Yet events overtook their deliberations. By mid-morning, the sound of vehicles and voices carried across the lake, search teams closing in on their location. Their hiding place would be discovered within hours. "You need to go," Lily insisted, her composure finally cracking slightly. "Take the data. Continue our work. It's the only way to ensure this separation is temporary." William felt torn between his responsibility to their investigation and his commitment to Lily's well-being. "I can't leave you. You must," Lily replied, her voice breaking. "The probability of our ultimate success decreases by 64.8% if the investigation halts now. Those are unacceptable odds." In the end, necessity forced their hand. William helped Lily prepare for her return to authorities, carefully removing any trace of their investigation from her possessions while ensuring she had warm clothes and personal items for comfort. He provided her with a special origami crane containing a hidden message, contact information for Rebecca, that might prove vital if circumstances allowed. Their parting was brief but emotionally charged, a moment William would replay in his mind countless times in the days to come. "This is not goodbye," he told her firmly. "It's a temporary variable in the equation, nothing more." Lily nodded, struggling visibly with emotions her brilliant mind couldn't easily process. "Standard deviation suggests our separation will not exceed 24 days, based on current legal parameters." She adjusted her glasses, blinking rapidly. "Please remember to maintain proper nutritional intake in my absence. Your cognitive function diminishes when you skip meals." William pulled her into a gentle embrace, a rare physical connection that spoke volumes about the depth of their bond. "I'll come for you," he promised, "no matter what it takes." From the cover of dense woods, William watched as Lily walked deliberately toward the search team, her small figure straight-backed and dignified even in surrender. She offered no resistance as they escorted her to a waiting vehicle, answering their questions with the precise, measured responses that were so characteristically hers. The sight of her being driven away tore at something fundamental in William's chest. In his former life, he had faced financial ruin, public humiliation, and the betrayal of his closest associate. Yet none of those experiences compared to the hollowness he felt watching Lily disappear from view. For the next 48 hours, William moved through a haze of purposeful activity, focusing entirely on preserving their investigation while evading detection. He made his way to a predetermined emergency meeting point where Rebecca retrieved him and transported him to a new safe location, a small apartment above a bookstore owned by a former SFG employee still loyal to William. "They've placed her in a specialized residential facility for gifted children," Rebecca reported, after establishing secure communications with her contacts. "Officially for evaluation and protection pending the full guardianship hearing. In reality, it's isolation. No outside communication, no internet access, restricted visitation approved through channels now compromised by Quantum's influence." William's health, already strained by months of stress, began to deteriorate under the emotional burden of separation from Lily. He developed chest pains that he ignored, focusing obsessively on continuing their work. Rebecca noticed his pallor and shortness of breath, but knew better than to suggest he rest. The investigation was the only path back to Lily. Meanwhile, in the residential facility, Lily retreated into herself. The staff reported that she refused to speak, responding to questions only with written notes containing minimal information. She ate little, slept less, and spent hours staring at complex mathematical equations she drew on provided paper, equations that meant nothing to her observers, but which contained encoded messages documenting her observations within the facility. She's gathering information even in isolation, Rebecca realized when she managed to obtain copies of Lily's equations through a sympathetic staff member. These patterns contain detailed observations about security protocols, staff rotations, communication systems. She's mapping the entire operation from the inside. On the 17th day of their separation, Rebecca made the breakthrough they had been desperately seeking. Working through the night with Lily's algorithms as her guide, she successfully traced the manipulated evidence that had triggered the guardianship suspension to a specific security contractor employed by Quantum Capital. "It's the connection we needed," she told William, her exhaustion evident but her eyes bright with triumph. "The same digital signatures, the same methodologies used to falsify communications in your guardianship case were also used in transactions flagged by Lily's analysis of Quantum's financial operations. They got sloppy, used the same tools for both operations." This evidence, combined with their accumulated financial analysis, created a compelling case, not just of financial fraud, but of deliberate manipulation of the family court system to silence potential whistleblowers. Rebecca packaged everything into a comprehensive presentation and delivered it to contacts at the Securities and Exchange Commission and the State Attorney General's office. 3 days later, an emergency hearing was convened to review William's guardianship suspension. The presiding judge, presented with evidence of tampering and manipulation, issued an immediate order for Lily's release from the residential facility and the provisional reinstatement of William's guardianship pending a full review. The reunion took place on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, 22 days after their separation. William waited anxiously in a conference room at the courthouse, his heart racing with anticipation and fear. What if the separation had changed things between them? What if Lily blamed him for failing to protect her? When the door finally opened and Lily entered, escorted by a court officer, William was struck by how small she looked, thinner than before, with shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there previously. For a moment, they simply stared at each other across the room, neither moving nor speaking. Then Lily broke the silence in her inimitable way. 22 days, she stated, within the standard deviation of my original estimate. William laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy, and crossed the room to kneel before her. "I missed you too," he said softly. Lily's composure finally cracked. Without warning, she threw her arms around his neck in an uncharacteristic display of emotion. "The facility had no access to advanced mathematical texts," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And they overcooked the pasta every single day." William held her close, feeling the tension of 22 days of anguish begin to dissolve. "We did it," he told her. "We found the connection. Now we can finish what we started." Lily pulled back slightly, her expression serious. "They will retaliate. The statistical probability of escalation is 94.7%. "Let them try," William replied, with newfound determination. "We're stronger together than apart. They've already played their best card and failed." As they left the courthouse, reunited and recommitted to their investigation, neither William nor Lily could have predicted just how desperate their enemies would become, or how public their private battle was about to become. The final confrontation with Martin Reynolds and Quantum Capital loomed on the horizon, with stakes higher than either had initially imagined. Chapter 7. Redemption and Legacy. The morning after their reunion, William and Lily sat at the small kitchen table in their temporary safe house, sharing breakfast and strategizing their next moves. Rebecca joined them via secure video link, her expression serious but determined. Quantum's stock dropped 8% yesterday after rumors of an SEC investigation began circulating, she reported. "Martin is scrambling to contain the damage, but investors are getting nervous." "Good," William said, passing Lily another blueberry muffin. He had noticed how thin she'd become during their separation and was determined to restore her health. Nervous investors ask questions. Questions lead to scrutiny. They've also launched a preemptive PR campaign, Rebecca continued, painting themselves as victims of corporate sabotage, orchestrated by, surprise, a disgruntled former CEO with a vendetta. Lily, who had been unusually quiet since their reunion, finally spoke. Their strategy is predictable but potentially effective. They're establishing a narrative that undermines our credibility before we can present our evidence publicly. William recognized the concern behind her clinical assessment. Despite their progress, they remained vulnerable. The temporary reinstatement of his guardianship could be reversed. The evidence they had gathered, while compelling, still required expert interpretation to demonstrate criminal intent, and Martin Reynolds commanded resources that dwarfed their own. "We need to change the equation," William said, an idea forming. "Instead of trying to outmaneuver them in the shadows, we take this into the light. All of it." Rebecca looked skeptical. "You mean go public, before the regulatory investigation is complete? That's risky." "Not just public," William clarified. "We make the evidence itself public, open source Lily's algorithms, release the full analysis showing how the manipulation works, create a situation where the truth can't be contained or controlled by any single entity, including Martin. Global distribution of our findings would create a self-sustaining information ecosystem," Lily observed, warming to the concept. "The statistical probability of successful suppression decreases exponentially with each independent verification of our analysis." Over the next week, they prepared for what William called their transparency offensive. Lily refined her algorithms into an accessible format that would allow independent analysts to verify their findings. Rebecca established secure channels for distributing their evidence to journalists, academic researchers, and financial watchdogs worldwide. William prepared a comprehensive narrative explaining how Martin had systematically undermined SFG before, applying the same fraudulent methodologies at Quantum Capital. As they worked, William noticed subtle but significant changes in Lily. The clinical detachment that had been her emotional armor had developed cracks. She stayed closer to him physically, as if reassuring herself of his continued presence. At night, he often found her sleeping with an origami crane clutched in her hand, the same design as the one that had carried Rebecca's hidden contact information during their separation. "I experience intrusive thoughts regarding our separation," she admitted one evening when William gently inquired about her restless sleep. "Statistically improbable scenarios involving permanent disconnection. My neurological processing appears to have been affected by the experience." "You're having anxiety," William translated softly. "Maybe even some trauma. That's completely normal, Lily." "I dislike it," she stated, flatly. "It's inefficient and interferes with optimal cognitive function." William sat beside her on the edge of her bed. "Do you know what I learned when you were gone? That the most sophisticated financial algorithms in the world couldn't fill. The emptiness I felt without you. Some equations can't be solved with pure logic." Lily considered this. "You're suggesting that emotional processing is a necessary component of human experience, not merely an inefficient evolutionary artifact." "I'm suggesting," William said with a gentle smile, "that it's okay to admit you missed me and were scared. Just as I missed you and was terrified I might never see you again." In that moment of vulnerability, something shifted in their relationship. The brilliant child and the fallen financial titan had become something neither could have anticipated. Family in the truest sense, bound not by blood, but by shared experience, mutual respect, and genuine love. This newfound emotional fortitude would prove essential for the challenges ahead. 3 days before their planned public release of evidence, Martin Reynolds made his countermove. A private message was delivered to William, an offer to resolve matters amicably. In exchange for their silence and the surrender of all evidence, Martin would return half of William's lost fortune, ensure his permanent guardianship of Lily remained unchallenged, and provide a written admission of unspecified ethical lapses in his business dealings. "He's desperate," Rebecca observed when William shared the offer during their secure call. "This is basically an admission of guilt. It's also tempting, William admitted. Financial security for Lily's future, legal certainty about our family status, a partial admission that could be leveraged later. The offer is statistically significant, Lily noted, her analytical mind assessing all angles. It provides 62.4% of our desired outcomes with only 8.7% of the continued risk. William studied her, seeing beyond the numbers. But what would it cost us? Lily met his gaze with unexpected emotional clarity. Our integrity, the opportunity to create systemic change. Justice for the 24,873 individuals who lost significant financial assets when SFG collapsed. She paused. The correct choice is often not the easy one. You taught me that. William felt a surge of pride at her wisdom. Then we proceed as planned. No deals, no compromises. The day of their public disclosure arrived with tense anticipation. From a secure location, they simultaneously released their evidence through multiple channels. Financial journalists, regulatory agencies, academic institutions, and a custom website where Lily's algorithms were made available as open source. Tools for identifying market manipulation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, financial analysts worldwide began applying Lily's methodologies to market data, confirming her findings and identifying similar patterns in other investment firms. Journalists published detailed exposés connecting Martin Reynolds to the deliberate sabotage of SFG and the subsequent fraud at Quantum Capital. Social media exploded with discussions of the Stratton-Chen algorithms and their implications for market transparency. Quantum Capital's stock plummeted 37% in a single day. Trading was temporarily halted as investors rushed to withdraw funds. The SEC announced an accelerated investigation, and the Justice Department confirmed it was reviewing evidence of potential criminal violations. Martin Reynolds made one final, desperate attempt to contain the damage. In a hastily arranged television interview, he dismissed the allegations as the vengeful fabrications of a disgraced executive and his exploited ward, suggesting that William was manipulating Lily's mathematical abilities for his own vindictive purposes. It was a critical miscalculation. The public questioning of Lily's agency and intelligence provoked an unexpected defender. Dr. Eleanor Hammond, the mathematician who had first recognized Lily's extraordinary abilities at the Innovation Gala, arranged a counter-interview where she systematically validated the mathematical soundness of Lily's algorithms, confirming that they could only have been developed by a mind of remarkable originality and sophistication. "I've reviewed Ms. Chen's work extensively," Dr. Hammond stated emphatically. "These are not the calculations of a child being manipulated. They represent breakthrough methodologies in pattern recognition that most established mathematicians would struggle to conceptualize, let alone implement. To suggest otherwise is to fundamentally misunderstand the nature of mathematical genius." The final blow came from an unexpected quarter. Amanda Pearson, the former social worker who had been coerced into spying on William and Lily, came forward with a sworn affidavit detailing how Quantum Capital's security division had threatened her family to obtain information and manipulate the guardianship proceedings. 7 days after their public disclosure, Martin Reynolds was placed on administrative leave by Quantum Capital's board of directors. 3 weeks later, he was arrested on charges of securities fraud, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. The investigation expanded to include 12 other executives and financial analysts connected to the scheme. For William and Lily, the aftermath brought both vindication and new challenges. They returned to Brooklyn, to the modest apartment that had been William's first home after his fall from grace, now transformed by Lily's presence into something that truly felt like home. Mei Chen, who had supported them throughout the ordeal, despite her own fears, joined them for a celebration dinner that lasted late into the evening. "What happens now?" Mei asked as the night wound down, Lily having finally succumbed to exhaustion and fallen asleep on the couch. William gazed at the sleeping child who had changed his life so profoundly. "Now we build something better." The something better began to take shape in the months that followed. As the legal proceedings against Martin Reynolds and his associates continued, William was approached by former investors and employees of SFG who had lost everything in the collapse. Rather than seeking personal restitution, William proposed a different solution, a new institution dedicated to financial transparency and education. The Chen Stratton Institute for Financial Innovation was established with recovered funds from the quantum capital case and contributions from industry leaders who recognized the need for systemic reform. Its mission was twofold: to develop and freely distribute tools for detecting market manipulation and to identify and nurture mathematical talent in underprivileged communities. Lily, now 11 and accelerating through her educational path at Westridge Academy, became the youngest ever research fellow at the Institute, leading a team developing next-generation financial safeguards based on her original algorithms. Her work attracted attention from universities worldwide, leading to unprecedented educational opportunities. William, once defined by his wealth and corporate power, found deeper fulfillment in his role as Lily's guardian and mentor. His permanent guardianship was finalized without opposition, creating the legal framework for the family they had already become in every meaningful sense. Though he maintained a consulting role at the Institute, his primary focus remained Lily's well-being and development, not just as a mathematical prodigy, but as a growing person with emotional and social needs. On the first anniversary of their public disclosure, a date they now celebrated as their Truth Day, William and Lily sat together on a bench in the same Brooklyn park where they had first met. Lily was folding an origami phoenix, her fingers moving with the same precise grace that had first caught William's attention. "Do you ever regret it?" William asked, watching her work. "Getting involved in all this? There might have been an easier path." Lily considered the question with her characteristic thoroughness. Regret is an inefficient emotion based on the statistical fallacy that alternative outcomes would have been preferable, despite incomplete data. She completed the phoenix and held it up to the light. "However, I have conducted extensive probability analysis and determined that the likelihood of finding another guardian who understands both advanced financial algorithms and the optimal ratio of chocolate to marshmallows in hot cocoa was approximately 0.0042%. William laughed, recognizing the emotion beneath her analytical framing. "So that's a no then?" "That is a definitive negative," Lily confirmed, placing the phoenix in his hand. "Our encounter was a statistically improbable event that optimized multiple life variables simultaneously." She adjusted her glasses, a gesture that now signaled thoughtfulness rather than emotional distance. "Some might call it luck. I prefer to classify it as an optimal alignment of otherwise random factors." "Most people would just call it family," William suggested gently. Lily considered this, then nodded with unexpected solemnity. An acceptable classification. As they sat together in comfortable silence, William reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. His fall from financial grace, once the greatest catastrophe of his life, had become the catalyst for something far more valuable than the empire he had lost. In seeking justice against Martin Reynolds, he had found redemption not through revenge, but through purpose and connection. Lily, watching a mathematical pattern in the flight of autumn leaves, was similarly contemplative. The lonely child selling origami in the park had found not just intellectual stimulation, but belonging. A concept she had once analyzed as an abstract social construct, but now experienced as an essential element of her existence. The Chen Stratton Institute continued to grow, its influence expanding as financial systems worldwide adopted its transparency tools and methodologies. William occasionally spoke at industry events, his perspective on ethical finance valued precisely because of his experience with its absence. Lily published her first academic paper at 12, challenging conventional approaches to algorithmic trading with insights that veteran economists described as revolutionary. But beyond these public accomplishments, their greatest achievement remained private. The family they had created through choice rather than circumstance, bound by mutual respect and unconditional acceptance. Mei Chen, still working at the hospital but now in an administrative role with reasonable hours, often joined them for Sunday